Thinking time.
And students, they indicate this with looking at you or any other little covert signal you might have with your students.
And again, these are our same working agreements that you've now seen multiple times. And again, we want you to remember here that everything that we are working on, if you look at our strategic plan, it focuses down here on the bottom with our foundation. And for students to continue to learn the information, we want to make sure that they retain it, that they have those opportunities to reverse and practice the information with accuracy, and make sure that they are engaged in the lesson. And we also want our students to be present when learning. We can always get better in teaching. As many of you that I've worked with or talked with, you can never have that perfect lesson. I know some of you have been really close, maybe you have, but you can always go back and you as yourself, as your own worst critic, look at those teaching things about, oh, I just want to ask this question. Or this student, I just want to walk over and do a little bit more proximity. So we want to continue to focus that and bring that to our forefront of engaging students in our learning. And so we continue with providing you with research-based strategies for structuring active participation.
Okay, so this is our goal every time we're together. This is our goal throughout the year. This is our goal when we teach. We want to make sure that we increase student learning through active participation by using strategies
Consistently
and
purposefully.
to increase the frequency of student responses. So last time we talked a lot about choral responses. We're still talking about choral responses. We still want to do that. Now let's focus on partner responses. So today, we kind of already did that first one. What is choral response? We're going to have some teacher demonstrations today. After this, we'll be doing some live teaching for you. We're going to watch a video of a West Side teacher, and we will watch some Anita Archer again. And then also, Mr. Olenek, who is a music teacher at Hillside, will cap us off at the end for some closure. In the middle, we'll focus on the partner responses.
So our goal, when we talk about explicit instruction, many times it is when we have new learning, when it is learning that we have not learned before. So our learning goal for our practicing our new learning today is going to be, I can perform the whip, nay nay, and the stanky leg, the song, Watch Me. So my job first is to teach you some of those dance moves. However, I want you to stand up and sit in your seat. I know it's still early. So we're going to follow the instructions. So if you would, start with your right arm. Okay? We're going to pull it back. You can kind of take your wrist and just twist a little bit like this. Okay? And then, since you're sitting, you can still raise your opposite leg if you want to. And we can feel great. And then we're going to punch forward. That's it. Okay? That is the whip. Pretty easy. Okay? And then you can get here and you can kind of do some bouncing. All right, the next one is the nay-nay. Now, I know many of you maybe know some of these moves. However, being an outdoor ed a few weeks ago, these were new terms to me. And I had a lot of students show me because they asked if you could do the whip and the nay-nay at the same time. And I said, you need to teach me that. So, moving here, we're going to do the nay-nay. So, how this works is you take your hand and you raise it. And basically, you're just waving like this. Okay? But the more you get into it, you move your shoulders, you can start to move your feet side to side. All right. I would get to the stanky leg, but we're not going to have time to skip on that one. I know, it's one of my favorites. Okay. All right, well now, since I did such a good job teaching you, we're going to have some people demonstrate the 3 dance moves. So I have all of your names.
This is the worst. This is my worst.
James Myers, P.E. Westbrook. James, where are you? No? Joe Olenek. Hillside. Let's go. Okay, Joe, let's see the whip. No. And Aaron O'Brien, Haddock Road. Where's Aaron?
No, thank you.
No. talk would be, have you ever had students in your classroom who, one, you called on demonstrated wrong, like Joe did. You've had some students you called on, like James demonstrated and said, huh? What? Oh, I wasn't paying attention, I forgot. Okay? Or like Aaron, and they say, no thanks, I am not going to participate. Okay? So when you continue to move forward today and we talk about partner responses, it is to engage the learner. And you want to make sure that when you are calling on students that they've had a chance to practice it, that they've had a chance to feel good about themselves with it, check with a partner, because you don't want to randomly call on students. I mean, this is a great technique if you've had a chance for everyone to practice and perform. However, if we went back and listened 2 minutes ago and I said, I got everyone's name, all of you went, oh no. And you're thinking, do not choose me, please not me. So, this time again for super awesome. Yeah. So I am going to change this one just a little bit this time because I forgot something last time. So, this is our structure for partnering people together. So,
Now, while Dr. Beth was super enthusiastic in teaching us the work of the naming, he wasn't very effective. So we're going to talk about what did he do that was not best practice. So we'll start with super, and you can use that stem. Something was not best practice because, and then once when you feel like you've exhausted all of the things that he failed to do, you'll go on to as a student. How'd you feel when you said your name's in that box and share that with the partner? Principals in the room. Where are you? Yeah. Cynthia. You would stand up.
Steph and Jenner in the back left.
Oh, okay. There you go. They're going to listen to your conversation, jot some notes down like you did last time. We'll do a little share. We have about 45 seconds to share. Super go first.
Super go first, 45 seconds.
I just was listening to Mel and Jason. There was no practice time. You did not give additional styles of teaching. You just gave one. You also added a lot of stress onto the audience when you just pulled names out of the box. Those are some examples.
Modeling was not best practice. There were not enough examples as well. You did not include the whole group in those practice opportunities.
Good, thanks.
Dr. Betts, you didn't pre-test because some people in this room already know all of
Megan, anything else I didn't do well?
Lindsay and Karen and I talked about, again, that there was no practice time or time to rehearse. There was a lot of you knew as a teacher, not a lot of time for us to feel comfortable. So then when we knew any of us could be called on, it really raised the level of fear.
Thank you.
There was no music to go with it.
We also talked about there was really no feedback with the students. So they didn't know, there was no accountability for them to try something and then pass it, try something, there was no feedback on whether they were doing it correctly.
Sunset talked about that there was no component of I do, we do, you do, so that made them feel like they didn't know what to do when you're on the house. And the music department said the lack of modeling made them want to say, you want me to do what? The front row had a really good comment, so I don't know if your group talked about it, but did you hear how Greg said, well, you don't have to worry about mistake, right? Even though that was part of the goal, and I think sometimes that might happen in the classroom. Oh, don't worry about this, or you don't need to know this for the test. Things like that, you know.
But if you think about the kids in your class who already know this, but maybe they're too embarrassed or they don't want to raise their hand, but they're probably one of the best students in the class to model for you, and they didn't get that opportunity to share. So think about those students also at the other end who are like, I already know this, but I could be doing some great things for the class, I could be sharing out, I could be modeling to peers. They didn't have that example either. So great job picking out some of those best practices that you want to.
Okay, so active participation should include these things. These are things that were missing from Dr. Betts' list. So active participation should allow adequate
Thinking time.
Involve
All students.
Be
Structured, safe.
and hold students accountable
I can ask meaningful questions to help me understand the text. Okay, those phrases that I can say in one breath, not when you chunk it up and you read all those words together. So if you look at the very first ones, I want you to read it with me. Ready, everyone? Near the car. Oh, now listen to your phrasing. Okay. Near the car, a few good men in the country is seen too good. Below the water, it's hard to open. Keep it up. Stop right there. That's not very good. I'm going to read it to you. Why don't you read it with me, Ron? The dog ran down the street. It sounds so goofy. That sounds really goofy. But let's talk about what words would we say together? Where would we phrase? So I want you to think. Don't stand out back. Think. Ones. I want you to turn to twos. And you're going to say, I would chunk the first phrase after the word. Are you ready? I would chunk the first phrase after the word. Go ahead. Share it. Ones, go. The model to you, and then I want you guys to echo read with me. Ready? You listen. The fluffy dog ran down the street. Everyone? The fluffy dog ran down the street. Okay, I'm giving you a second to go ahead and just look. I'll read the title sheet. Tall Tale Tuesday. Okay, you're going to be everyone. Tall Tale Tuesday. Okay, look at the picture. Make a prediction in your head what you think the story is going to be about. I want you to think. I've been teaching for 16 years, and every year I'm looking for different things I can add and tweak to my learning. And ever since we've been doing the training at the beginning of the year, I was really considering of all those things that I'm doing where I know that the kids are being active participants. I do a lesson by the time that lesson is over. They're talking more, they're participating more. I'm noticing that their engagement has been more increased. And so I just continue to try more things in the different subject areas and tweaking how I do it in whole group and small group and really pulling some of those strategies from the beginning.
Thank you, Mary. So now it is our turn to start talking about partner responses. And if you start thinking back to the video we just saw with Mary Morris, the thing that was key for 25 minutes is that it was consistent with those responses. It was consistent with signals, it was consistent with think time, it was consistent with partner responses. I cut a ton out, but for the entire 25 minutes, kids were responding together. There was never a moment where a student was not actively engaged in the lesson. And I know looking out here at all of you, you're like, I do those things, and I'm with you. And what I struggle with for me is when I think back to my career in the classroom was how consistent was I with those responses? I had them, and we did them, but as we started to talk about partner responses, I didn't always think about how to partner my students. I didn't always make sure that I had all students responding. So if you look up here at some of the partner responses, what I'd like you to do, and you have this in your handout, is just choose 3 or 4 statements, so 2 maybe on each side, that stand out to you. So as you read that list, what are 2 that stand out to you that you do on a consistent basis in your classroom? As we move on to the next slide, if you think about partner responses, when should you use partner responses? Using partner responses can help struggling students, it can help high ability students. Providing sentence stems provides that language for all kids and gives you that structure. Teaching information to a partner is a great use also because in the act of teaching, it is possible that you might remember it better. All of the studies show that when you actually teach it or talk about it, you have a better chance of recalling that information later. So looking up here, there's many different times and ways to partner. And we just had a question from the last session, was asked, do we always have to choose a partner? Or we're going to go through in here where there's some times where you can choose a friend. However, I would have you think about when you are partnering, if it is critical content information, that you definitely want to be choosing partners. So, how to set up partners. First of all, you want to strategically assign them. Pair lower with middle, or middle with higher. The reason being, most often when you pair a lower performing student with a higher performing student, the higher performing student dominates the conversation. Now this is not an always thing, but many times when that happens, the lower performing student will say, "Oh, can you just do it?" And the higher performing student sometimes does. So you want to make sure that you're challenging students the right way, that you're partnering out not only for behaviors, but for academics. Make sure that you give them a title, like we've done. Super and awesome and here, 1 and 2, A and B. I know at the high school they were doing West Side and Warrior. You can get creative, whatever your school name is. But having partners have titles allows you to control the conversation. So you can say 1 to go first or 2 to go first. And obviously it helps to have partners sit next to each other, but not always. I was in a first grade classroom earlier this year, and partners didn't sit together until they came to the floor. So when they came to the floor, they had their assigned spots where they were partners there. So they weren't always partnered when they were sitting in the desks. And then triads. We're going to learn a little more about this from Dr. Archer.
Now, is it possible that you've ever had a child in your class that everybody had some difficulty working with? Raise your hand if you've ever seen that. Okay? And it could be many children. It could be a included special ed student that might be more challenging. It could be gifted obnoxious. So there's many possibilities. But what I do with that child is I put them not on a dyad, but on a triad. So let's just use an example here. Let's say that, Brooke, you're in my 5th grade class, and pretty extensive behavioral challenges, and everybody has a little bit of difficulty working with you, okay? Now, so let's say I assign you to Mandy, okay? The challenge is, by 5th grade, your goal, Mandy, is to be in the in-group, connected to peers in your class. True, you're already in the peer years. And being assigned to Brooke is not in the in-group. So you turn around, talk to Holly, you lean over here, talk to Felix, and so you're not paying attention to her. So what I do is I put you not on a dyad, but a triad. Okay? So I add Heather. You look over, ooh, Heather. Very popular. And I'm definitely in the in-group again. Okay? So your number is 1. And your number is 2, and your number is also 2. She has to sit in the middle, or she will be attended to by either. So 1 to 2. And so when I say 1, say the answer, you say it to them. When I say 2, say it, you discuss it, and then you report it. Now, during the day, when you leave to go to the resource room, there's still a working partnership. When you leave to see the counselor, still a working partnership. When you return, 2 people business to already done. So this is a very good way to scaffold those lower students, is put them not on a dyad, but on a, what everyone, a triad. Now, let me just take this a step further. You have increasing numbers of students that are English language learners in your class. And this could also be used to support a newcomer who doesn't know English. Let's just see how that would go. So let's say that you are a Spanish-speaking student, very fluent, but not an English speaker. And you're in my class in 5th grade. And you are an English-only student. And you, blessed Heather, are a bilingual student, facile both in Spanish and English. Good job. So what I'm going to do is English only, you're number 1. Spanish only, you're number 2. And bilingual, you're number 2. And so I'll say 1, say the answer. You'll say it to them. You might even tell her in Spanish what the answer was. And then, when I say to say the answer, you might discuss it in Spanish, but you're going to give her an English answer that she then has to repeat. In other words, if we take time to train the children, we can actually have an ongoing English lesson all day long, right? So we want to set it up to support your acquisition, okay? And I'll tell you, the combination of using choral responses, which are very supportive of you, and using triads is going to heighten your acquisition of English.
Okay, so we have a little agree, disagree, and why you're going to share. Awesome, you'll go first. Partnering my highest learners with my struggling learners is the best way to facilitate peer modeling and response. Agree, disagree, and why. So this little chunk of PD, when you go back to the building, you'll focus on 4 different types of partners. We're only going to look at the first one today, which is the partner first, which Anita already talked about a little bit. It's when you converse with your partner before you do a whole group. You'll learn more if you don't know already. I'm sure a lot of you already utilize this. The think, pair, share, the pause procedure, and the steady tell help chat. We're going to watch a little quick video about
It is what you can do if you are teaching science or social studies or math and you want to ask questions, particularly ones that are going to take more thinking, higher order questions. And practice that moves away from say, together, Felix, because that doesn't give you any chance to think, any chance to practice your answer. So this is a strategy we call partners first. And so first, you would ask a what everyone? A question. So you're going to ask a question and you're going to follow it by what kind of time, everyone? Think time. And I usually again put up my hand to show them silence as we think. And I often will also think because when they look up and see that I'm thinking. And then often it's a sort of hint to them that they should be thinking also. So we're going to ask a question, and then we're going to think. And then you might consider, particularly if you teach lower kids, scaffolding their answers by giving them a sentence starter. Have you noticed that every time I've asked you to share answers with a partner, I've given you a verbal sentence starter. So I have said ones. You're going to say one good practice was. Twos, you're going to say another good practice was. So I gave you a sentence starter. Okay? Now, I want you to think for a moment. If I gave you a sentence starter and then you completed it, what might be some of the benefits? So talk it over with your partner. What would be some of the benefits of a sentence starter? Thinking and sharing with your partner. Okay, looking up here. And, you totally reflected the observations I had on using sentence starters, which I'm adding to my own repertoire, trying to be very intentional about it. Many of you said, well, with a sentence starter, you knew how to get it going. You could initiate much more quickly. And for some students, actually starting it is the challenge, so that they could initiate. A next number of you said, well, they would be more likely to be thinking of the question because the words in the sentence starter would reflect what was the question. Another idea you had was that, well, they're going to.
So, see, your most important takeaway, if you were to teach somebody about the partner first response, what's the critical component of that for you as an instructor? And because why? Super first.
Please welcome Joe Mullen to the
So start with your right
Arm.
pull it
Back.
and then punch
Forward.
keeping your arm out
Straight.
On the pull back, you'll raise your
Opposite.
foot and set it back down on the punch.
Forward.
Hold the position and
Bounce.
follow me. So those are the 4 steps to the width, and that's my only objective for you. So I'm not going to let you sit this time. No. Stand up. Mirrors up means do mirror me. I always ask my kids, do mirrors talk? That was me. Do mirrors talk?
No.
Okay. So mirror me, but your voices are off. So here we go. I have much fewer kids than this any given day. This is pretty awesome. Start with this. Oh, I'm sorry, I used the wrong hand. I'm using my left hand. You should be using your
Right.
Okay, cool. So slow motion, just arm. One more time, that slow. A little faster now. One more time. Let's add some leg movement. I'm going to put my right leg into it, which means you're using your
Left.
Okay, so we're going to bring it up while we do this, and put it down while we do that. One more time, that's slow. One more time, real speed. Now sometimes Silento will ask you to do 2. He'll go, watch me whip. So when he does that, we're going to just do the opposite of what we did. So let's start. Let's do the first one again. Bam. Now we're going to reverse everything you just did. Bam. Let's do the opposite one again. So we're going to start from the beginning. Ready? Bam. Now, slow motion on our hand. Whip that down. Let's add the opposite leg into it. Bam. Again. Bam. One more time. Bam. Okay, the first one, the second one. Whip me once. Ready? Whip. Cool. So I want you to just use the cross and yeah. So 2 birds. Demonstrate 1 and then 2 whips. Awesome. So look for the right leg at the right time and look for good arm movement. See you in 10 seconds.
All right, thank you. Big round of applause. So you have this in your handout. So these are thoughts for you to leave with on thinking about why and how should I partner my students. On October 28th, you will be in your buildings for a professional learning focus day. And I know some of you already have this done because you have your partners already paired out and why. On that day, we're asking all of the buildings to have a conversation about these are the kids I pair in my class, and here's why. So do it on October 28th. Bring a list of your class that you have paired and be prepared to discuss your rationale of why.